Karl Rove is here, former Deputy Chief of Staff to President George W. Bush, also a Fox contributor. Karl, I saw Larry. I was talking to him by the coffee machine earlier, and I told him I was going to quote him, and I thought I'll do him one better. I'll just roll the tape. But do the Democrats know it's dead? Are they paying attention?
I think they figured that out a little while ago, and now they're trying to figure out how to resurrect parts of it and to see if there's anything that Senator Manchin would go for. But Build Back Better as we knew it is dead.
Will he go for any of it?
Well, he's indicated an openness to some elements, for example, the child tax credit. But the child tax credit is written in the Build Back Better bill. If you ran it for 10 years rather than 1 year like they had it in the bill, would chew up all the $1.7 trillion in additional revenue they came up with. So, he has said, I want a work requirement, and I don't want it to be available to people who make more than $75,000 a year. And Democrats want it to be a universal benefit because they want to hook us all on getting a check from the government on a regular basis that they can claim credit for. So, something may happen, but I think it's highly unlikely that we will not see Build Back Better, and it's highly unlikely that we'll see something of the $1.7 trillion cost that they were talking about.
Well, you have inflation running at the hottest pace in nearly 40 years. You have a national debt that just hit, $30 trillion. Do they not, on the fiscal side of it, the Democrats, do they not realize that they're part of the problem? Because Biden has tried to start pointing the finger at Jay Powell over at the Federal Reserve, even talking about the dual mandate at the Fed. I'm not quite clear that Biden really understands that besides reading it out of a teleprompter. But it just seems out of this world that they would still try to spend money when the real problem for Americans is inflation and wages that are falling when adjusting for that.
Yeah, well, look, they're pointing at the wrong problem. The president said, well, the problem is the concentration in the meat industry or, right. Big companies, corporations. And we all, ordinary Americans understand what's happening. Our currency is being devalued. We're spending money we don't have. We're borrowing money from the future in order to pay for these things. We're expanding the currency, expanding the money supply dramatically. And as a result, the value of the dollar is declining. We're stimulating demand so that there's more money chasing fewer items, and what the result of that is going to be inflation. And people know that, and they want. That's why he's getting such lousy marks on 69% of the people disapprove of his handling of inflation, and almost as many, 50-some-odd percent, disapprove of his handling of the economy. So even though we got economic growth and supposedly we've got jobs and people are coming back after COVID, nonetheless, people are not attributing the good things to him. They're attributing the bad things to him, and they're probably right in doing that.
And all the people within Biden and company, they clearly have their noses out of joint about we're not getting enough credit for this record job creation. Biden tweeted this morning, well, he didn't clearly, but it was the President of the United States' Twitter account. 2021 was the greatest year of job growth in American history. And I saw that and thought, well, we're still 3.6 million jobs short of the pre-pandemic levels. And as I said, inflation's at a 40-year high and wages are falling, real wages.
Yeah, look, we're not dumb. People know to the degree that we got the good things happening, it's because the private sector is struggling to come back and succeeding. But yeah, you're right. We know of people in our lives who've not gotten back to work and have gotten a good job. We know of people in our lives who are struggling because their wages are not keeping up with the cost of the grocery store. We all know if we go to the pump or the grocery store that prices are significantly higher and that they're generally much higher. We get an increase in our wages maybe once a year. We're paying higher prices every month at the grocery store. We're not dumb. And the fact that the administration, particularly this White House, doesn't seem to understand that means their communication failures are going to continue. They're going to continue as long as they're talking about something the American people are not talking about and aren't as concerned with, and when they don't seem to understand the facts that we understand.
I have an idea, and if the Democrats if Joe Biden and the Democratic leadership, they could, if they really cared about inflation, and cared about falling real wages, they could actually take the stance, and it would turn the party on its head potentially. They love raising taxes, but they could be for raising revenue and cutting spending. And if they did that, it would take some of the heat off the Federal Reserve. And it would help if you force people to get back to work. You know, the student loan payment delay, that's putting more money in people's pockets. You start cutting, you be about higher taxes and cutting spending, that'd be a new Democratic Party, and it would help fight inflation, but they won't do it.
Yeah, they won't, because he can't get the votes to get it done without having virtually every Republican and a handful of loyal Democrats vote for it. You know, you mentioned the moratorium on student loan paybacks. Think about that. We're taking money from a working man or working woman who has never gone to college in order to cover the interest costs of a loan that we gave to somebody who went to college and is in all likelihood making more money as a result of that. I mean, talk about screwed up. I mean, every study we have is that these moratoriums on student loans and student loan forgiveness benefit people who inordinately who are at the upper scale in our country, and not at the lower scale or even in the middle scale.
Right. Karl Rove, you're the best.